So today's sermon has a whole lot of information in it. I realized a lot of the times we're afraid of the things that we don't know or don't really understand. I hope that some of this information removes some of the mystery and some of the fear, not just about people experiencing homelessness, but also of the monster of homelessness and housing that seems so impossible to wrap our heads around. I hope this is a little gateway into knocking away some of that fear. As you've seen from the giant sign outside, this is Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. As we continue the month's theme of repair, today we'll look at some of the ways that we can repair our neighborhoods and our cities and repair the lives perhaps of some of our neighbors, and maybe along the way repair some pieces of our own hearts in the process. Housing is a big jargon-laden world, I have learned. There's a lot of technical language. What I know barely skims the surface, but there are a few pieces of foundational information that I want to touch on as we dive in. In these conversations, the phrase affordable housing comes up over and over again. What the heck does affordable housing mean? No. It means a couple of different things. To you and me and most people, affordable housing means housing that we can reasonably afford. It's an opportunity to live somewhere that is safe for us and our family, something that we can afford with a full-time job, not 3 or 4 jobs. As you probably know, on the open market today, affordable housing is more and more difficult to come by. This month in our area, a bedroom with a bathroom in someone else's home or condo costs about $1,200 a month for a bedroom. To have your own place, a studio apartment, is about $2,000 a month. A 2-bedroom apartment is about $2,500 a month. And those are on the lower end. Prices can go up dramatically for more luxurious accommodations. For most people, affordable housing means having a place you and your family can live. In legal terms, for cities or developers or service providers or advocates like Welcoming Neighbors Home, affordable housing is defined by state law. It's a housing that costs no more than 30% of gross household income. When housing units are designed as affordable or designated as affordable, they're subsidized by various sources, so the rent paid by the tenant is capped at 30% of their income. If the income is very small or nothing, then the rent is 30% of that very small or nothing. If they have a modest income from a working class job, then the rent is capped at 30% of gross household income. The gap between what they pay and what the landlord receives is subsidized by the county or federal grants or other sources. I keep glancing at Rona like I feel like she wants to correct me on things, but I think I'm doing okay so far. Okay. For the past 5 or 6 years, a large portion of the efforts to address the housing crisis have been pushing cities to allow developers to build more affordable housing complexes in our area, or to designate more units in regular housing developments as affordable. In all of these cases I'm familiar with, there is plenty of money involved. The real hurdle is political. It's convincing city residents and leaders that more affordable housing is good for the city. And here's the exciting part. We are making quite a bit of progress, especially here in Lake Forest. I'll tell you about some of those wins in just a minute. There are 2 more pieces of concrete information I want to share. Through numerous points of research and surveys, the number one cause of homelessness in Orange County is a lack of access to affordable housing. Yes, other issues come into play, like domestic abuse or mental health or addiction issues or job loss, but the number one cause of homelessness here is a lack of access to affordable housing. People can find jobs, they just can't find a place where they can afford to live with a reasonable job, a place that's available to them. The final thing I want to share is about housing first. More and more cities and service providers are understanding that the cure to homelessness is housing. Once they are in housing, folks have a much better chance of addressing the other challenges of life. Last week, I was talking about surviving trauma and grief and navigating this post-election funk. I encouraged you to take care of yourselves, specifically eat some healthy food, enjoy a comfy blanket and a book or a movie, get plenty of rest and exercise when you can. Now, most of us have more than enough materially. And yet we are trying to take care of ourselves just enough to be emotionally functional some days. Keep in mind for just a moment the hierarchy of need: food, water, clothing, shelter, a sense of safety. Many of our neighbors don't have these basic needs that are really secured and nailed down. That's why more and more we look at providing housing first. Get people in a stable situation before making demands about their behavior. Expecting strategic problem solving or motivation to find a job or for someone to get sober without first finding them a stable place to live is just irrational and cruel. While there are lots of statistics and jargon that I could tell us about, it's equally important to remember for a moment how close these issues are. Here in our Tapestry community, I know of at least 2 established members that struggled as new moms. For one, it was a challenge to meet the daily needs of her child. The other found herself literally facing homelessness. Fortunately, the profound generosity of a different faith community got her on her feet, stable enough to get a career going. Similarly, off the top of my head, I could name at least 5 other Tapestry members who have struggled with addiction or mental health issues. If it weren't for a network of caring people and their courage and determination, and probably a little luck, they could have found themselves in dire financial circumstances. When I enter these conversations myself, I often forget that the struggle is in my own family. My great aunt, my grandmother's sister, who is 95 years old, lives in affordable housing. She qualifies for assistance because one of her sons has significant developmental disabilities. Her other adult son struggles with addiction that's caused her to lose her housing at least twice that I'm aware of. I haven't seen Aunt Ellen in several years, but my mom and her siblings do what they can to care for her from time to time. Without access to subsidized affordable housing, I do not know where she and my Uncle Mike would be living. Perhaps those sorts of stories of struggle touch some of your families too. Homelessness is not something that happens to those people out there. People who we couldn't possibly understand. The struggle really isn't that big of a mystery. Many, many people are one paycheck away or one health crisis away from losing the roof over their head. Acknowledging just how thin that safety net is, that we too could fall through those cracks, is really scary stuff. It's more comfortable to pretend that it's all a big mystery and we don't know who those people are. But there's also some very good news. We've had great success in our work to create more affordable housing. In fact, housing advocates throughout Orange County now recognize that the city of Lake Forest is one of the more forward-thinking places on this topic. Our city is open to being part of the solution, and I firmly believe that Tapestry and Welcoming Neighbors Home played a role in that and providing coverage for those elected officials to do the right thing. In 2023, the Mountain View Family Housing Complex opened its doors. There are 71 units of affordable housing for families and individuals. It was the first affordable housing built in Lake Forest since 2015. The building also hosts a community center with activities not just for the residents but also for the surrounding community. I remember being with several Tapestry members at the Lake Forest City Council meeting several years ago, pleading with them to approve this use for the land. I also remember some very aggressive heckling that we got and a pretty unwelcoming crowd of NIMBY folks, but we made it happen together. There's more. The Meadows is a large 162-acre development on Bake Parkway. Some of you may remember driving by a huge plant nursery on Bake Parkway. It almost looked like a farm in the city. It is a housing development now. While there are 541 single-family homes that I doubt are very affordable, the city required the developer to set aside 65 units of affordable housing for seniors age 62 and older. And another one, Portola Center, is another new housing development. It will include 926 homes, some single family and some multifamily, but included in that development is Portola Senior Apartments. This is pretty remarkable. This is a 58-unit complex of single-bedroom apartments for individuals or couples. Residents must be 62 years or older with an income of $50,000 annually or less. The complex includes features for aging in place, like elevator access and ADA-compliant bathrooms and kitchens. It's dedicated to providing long-term affordable apartments to seniors and low-income folks in Lake Forest. That's 194 new units of affordable housing in our city. Most of them are for seniors because that's politically an easier sell, but this is big progress here. Of course, there's a long way to go, and progress is possible. From the book I'm reading, The Book of Hope by Jane Goodall, and strangely enough from the story I told a few weeks ago about the 18th camel, I keep thinking about the necessity of hope. Hope may be very reasonable. It may be wildly ambitious. It might be impractical. But hope is absolutely necessary. If we can't hold a vision for the possibility of a problem being solved, or the possibility for a relationship to be mended, then we are all but guaranteed that the outcomes will be poor. I think my biggest takeaway personally from this month exploring the theme of repair is the necessity of having a hope or a vision of what might be possible to drive us forward. If we can't imagine a future that is thriving, we are sunk. The title for today's sermon may sound a little odd: safe, affordable, and thriving. Those three words come out of a recent meeting of all the housing and homelessness service providers in Orange County. There were, I think, around 80 of us from all different sectors of Orange County agencies meeting in a room for a couple of days. We gathered with a mission to articulate our narrative, our vision around homelessness and the housing crisis. In the wider world, you will hear all sorts of stories about homelessness. What they think the cause is, what they think the fix is, and how easy or hard it is to solve it. You hear these baked-in assumptions that some people don't deserve humane living conditions, or there just isn't enough to go around, or some people are unwilling to accept help. We knew that we had to come together to begin to tell a different story. And those gathered to meet worked on homelessness from all sorts of different perspectives. Some were providing shelter for youth, others were developers, builders of these affordable complexes. Some were advocates like us, and there were health service providers in the conversation. Habitat for Humanity was there. We were working together for a new vision, and what we came up with was, we are building an Orange County where everyone has a safe, affordable place to live and opportunities to thrive. Building an Orange County where everyone has a safe, affordable place to live and opportunities to thrive. Several weeks later, as I was helping work on the language for that sign out front, I realized that all that time, those 2 days in a room in conversation with all those people, what we came up is very, very similar to our core UU value of equity. As Unitarian Universalists, we say, every person is inherently worthy and has a right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, and attention and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. See, there are more UUs out there. They just don't know it yet. Whether it's coming from a communications campaign with our fellow advocates or from our values, the vision is clear. It won't happen overnight, but there is a clear direction and progress being made. I was glad to celebrate those successes, but before we wrap up, I want to let you know of some of the opportunities that we have before us. One is especially inspiring because it's a fellow faith community. Neighborhood Congregational Church down in Laguna Beach. Some of you have been there with me as a launching pad for protests for other issues. But they are trying to build a complex there in Laguna Beach for their own community. A recent change in California law allows for flexible zoning so that faith communities that own a good chunk of property can build affordable housing on their land. There are still a bunch of hurdles to jump through. To make a long story short, the neighbors are all riled up and angry. There's a lot of opposition, more concerned with property values and parking than building a community that's safe for everyone. Our sister liberal faith community in Laguna Beach is fighting hard on this project. At this moment, they've decided that it's not very helpful for outsiders to come into the city and tell the city what to do, but at some point we may be called upon to show up in force. There's also a much bigger possibility in Laguna Niguel. It's the redevelopment of the ziggurat. Yes, the ziggurat in Laguna Niguel. It's a huge federal building, if anyone didn't know, and it's on a huge piece of land on Alicia Parkway. The land could accommodate 4,000 units of housing. In our housing advocacy, we usually recommend that 15% of new developments be allocated for affordable housing. That means there could possibly be adding 600 units of affordable housing in South Orange County. That's a game changer for working class people and seniors and people with disabilities that could in fact impact the entire area. A housing developer has put in a bid on the property, but we are still sorting things out to know exactly what the strategy is, but it is a huge opportunity in the making. And there's one last development that I want to mention is the San Juan Plaza mixed-use development in San Juan Capistrano. It's a big step toward adding much-needed housing in San Juan Capistrano that will include 32 affordable units. And that is still in process and can use some advocacy. It just got approved, like done approved?
Yeah, it doesn't have to go to the...
Sweet, so we're in celebration mode. Thanks to some very hardworking grassroots advocates, these housing complexes and units are cropping up all over Orange County. Of course, there are also more immediate ways to be of help too. Bruce and John continue their tremendous effort providing hot, delicious meals for our neighbors in the shelter in Laguna Canyon twice a month. How many years have you been doing this? Like 10 years or more, I think, actually. To sign up to be part of that team, talk to these guys. We also have ongoing collections for non-perishable food here at Tapestry. The basket is always out there in the foyer, and Judy religiously takes those to the organizations that can use them. And a lesser-known option is that we still have our own tiny food pantry here in the closet under the stairwell over there. We tend to especially keep small items that don't require a cooking facility so that anyone, regardless of where they are, can use those food and toiletry items. And finally, if you are really fired up about housing and homelessness, welcoming neighbors home could use some fresh faces. Advocacy is hard work. Rona has been working time and a half for free for many years now. We've had some very big wins. And we've made a name for ourselves in Orange County as a resource, a change maker on this topic. But the leadership team is worn pretty thin these days. If you want to learn from one of the best, from Rona, she's pretty eager to do some training and some handing off of reins to other really passionate advocates. I said it last week, and I will say it again. Unitarian Universalism is made for these times. Equity is one of our highest values. Every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. If you are feeling disempowered this week, this month, I hope this feels a little bit better. We have opportunities to make a difference. In some cases, we have real opportunities to literally save lives. And we are doing it together. Amen.